right, let's do it live on a Thursday edition of the program. Welcome into Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, your sports betting partner. Your Cleveland Browns coming soon to Ohio. Merely Bo, the great Z from his palatial overlooking the spa and probably rivers and downtowns of the historical district and everything else you'd ever want in Philly. So much so he'd rather never leave Philadelphia.
What's the real truth, Bootsy? That's what I want to know, because that was not it.
That ain't it?
Yes, that ain't it. No, that's not it. In my hotel, I can actually peer out. If I lean forward a little bit and look way to the left, I can see the Lincoln Financial Field, where the Browns and the Eagles will participate in preseason game for the Browns, preseason game number 3. So that'll be looking forward to that, ready to get home. I think it's been a long week. I think it's kind of tough when
for you, brother.
And in the first 2 days, you get here, and Monday, those are the practices. That's kind of the meat of what you were here to do. And then you have kind of a day off-ish yesterday, at least from a football standpoint. And then now you got the game here tonight. So I think, we got here on Sunday. It's going to be
there a minute, brother.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and, we'll get home after the game sometime, after midnight. But yeah, it's been a long week. I think good stuff overall for this team. Like I said at the beginning, and I'll say it again, came here, accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. You know exactly where you stand. I talked to some people today, actually, a couple coaches and front office who were very, very pleased with how everything went here on this trip and got a lot of good work in. And really, the defense remains kind of the talk of it. And then offensively, we were running a lot of new stuff, put some new things in for this week, and everybody felt very good and feels – I'll tell you what, there's a lot of confidence about everything that's going on and our state of our passing game, all of that. And I think people are kind of very excited. You almost get a sense that they're like, people have no idea, like, you just haven't seen what we're going to do on offense yet. And that they're excited to
this
unleash
is hard.
that.
This is also, buddy, I think I've thought a lot about this, and we've addressed some of these things through the last year that you and I have been doing the show with this standard. That is now in place, and just the pressure that is there to deliver on this roster talent.
Oh yeah, got to.
But the other thing, just from a fan base, from a media perspective, those that cover the team, like, this team is different. This has happened a couple other times. This happened certainly going into Freddie's year when he was officially named the head coach. There was a sense of that this team will be judged on how it plays in the season, during the season.
Yep.
And that team was judged very, very harshly on what happened in the season, and rightfully so. This team is much like that. What happens in August, what happened last summer, when you think about camp, all of that, it's all nonsensical. What matters is September. Everybody knows that. So we're in this position where, for most of the previous 20 years of the franchise, like, these preseason games, the offseason, the preseason games were almost like a Super Bowl, right? Like, you're trying to unearth some diamond in a rough. We don't need to have diamonds in a rough. We're De Beers. There's talent everywhere.
Right.
Like,
That's
it's
right.
just a matter of it all going. And so the belief is that it will. And what I was most curious to find out in these 2 training camp practices in Philly, and I think it's the most valuable kind of measuring stick of where you are as a franchise, honestly, of anything that you're going to see between now until the Bengals come here in the opener, is could you match them physically? Did you belong on the field with them? And if the answer to that was yes, then you're on to something.
It was emphatically yes. And yeah, I think you are onto something. That's exactly kind of what this, to me, that's what this was all about. You get different answers from different people in the organization. This is not about a measuring stick or a barometer. We were here to get, good work against a quality opponent. And I think that's all true. But I think you also, part of the reason that you got here and part of the reason that you remade the roster and some of the things you did, I think, were part of those things that, became kind of the mindset and the mentality for how we shaped this roster came from the joint practices last year and what you saw against Philly and their size, and then the success obviously they went on to have. So yeah, it absolutely feels like this was a measuring stick. This was a barometer type of a week. And from just to your point, it's not from an execution standpoint, and while there was excellent execution on both sides of the ball, just from kind of that physicality, do we have the strength and the power and just the size and the speed, all of those things to be able to hang with the most physical roster in the NFL? And the answer was yes. And so at that point, it comes down to, coaching schemes and then player execution. And I feel very confident in our coaches and our schemes, and I feel very confident in our players' ability to execute. And so that's what they'll have to go out there and do when it matters. And that's the end of it.
Do you have dudes? That's what you're going to find out this week.
Yes.
That was it. I mean, the rest of it, you're practicing things. That's what this is. It's the middle of August.
That's right.
Did you have the toughness, the strength, the humans, the dudes, the speed to match Philly? If you belonged on the field with them, then you can belong on the field with any team in the NFL. And the answer to that emphatically, and not just me and Z. I mean, we understand, like orange and brown colored glasses. I get it. But this is across the beats. We're going to have Jeff Kerr on, and he's covered this from the other side of it. You'll see you're going to get an answer on if the Browns were able to more than hang with this Philly team. So that was accomplished. The game today, who are you most excited to see tonight? DTR. I mean, that's it. That's my guy. Yeah. And I assume the two Buckeyes are going to be playing on the line a lot again with Dewan and with Whippler. We'll see them as well.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. You're going to see, those young Ohio State linemen who have played very well. The other guys down there, you're going to see Tyrone Wheatley, I think, quite a bit at left tackle, and he's a guy that the Browns are very high on. I think you're going to see, you mentioned Dewan Jones, Luke Whippler, and they're going to be going against some of those Georgia Bulldogs that, they're familiar with. Yeah, they know them. So, that's kind of, you look through, and I didn't even on ours, I finished my boards for our team early yesterday. I finished the Eagles up to this morning for their offense, but I didn't even have our starters put on ours. But this is on our side of it. There's still plenty of guys to get excited about. Can Nick Harris continue to show what he has? Dewan Jones just staying on the line. We'll go kind of position by position. I think that'll be an easy way to go through this today. But yeah, there are definitely some compelling things to watch, and some things certainly at stake for some of these players today. I think on both sides of the ball, where there are the few battles, to stay on this roster or to stay in this program, there's a lot at stake for those guys, for the Cleveland Browns tonight. Again, the outcomes don't matter. This game is not about the outcome. If the Browns win this game or if the Browns lose it, of course, winning is more fun. The most important thing that can happen in this game, honestly, is it's really easy. The most important thing that can happen tonight is that Cade York gets multiple field goal attempts and makes them all.
That's really
it.
Where you're at. Yeah, and I wouldn't even mind. I mean, initially when you said it earlier in the week about you would have liked to have seen him get an attempt in the fourth quarter of the game last Friday. Yeah. Initially, it shocked me, so I wasn't really sure how to process that. But then, the more that you think of it, the more that is how I think preseason football should be used. It should be used almost entirely as situational football. And it's, like Rodgers when he's saying there's no sense of running. What are we doing running the ball in the preseason? If you have a question about a kicker or a punter, put them in a position to see if they can handle it. I mean, that's how preseason football should be used. It shouldn't be coached in a way, and I think some coaches are getting to that point where it shouldn't be coached in a way of we're trying to win the game with the fourth guy at running back. Like that's really not what it's about. It's about something so much bigger than that.
Correct.
And so you're right. That's exactly the most important thing that will come of tonight. What is your sense on how Philly will treat this one? Because this is their second preseason game.
Yeah, I don't think their starters are going to get much work. I think you will see some players, and Chris Rowe already plugged into that, and what we're having him come on. He's doing play-by-play voice for the TV broadcast, and he's plugged in with some guys in Philly, so he'll give us a better rundown. But the big names, you will not see any of the big names. They got their work in the practices, and in fact, they didn't even play in the first preseason game so that they could get their work in the practice. One thing I just wanted to point out real quickly, because I think it's important for people to understand, and this has nothing to do with the preseason game, but we know that the field vote is down to the final two with the dog and keeping Brownie there. And a lot of people have wanted either a 32 at midfield,
that's right,
or the helmet, the old school helmet with a 32 on the side. I think everybody would like that. It's not possible. So I don't want people to think that's
good,
not a choice, because
I'm among them that was like, put that 32 at midfield. You can't just put the 32 at midfield?
You can't. No. The NFL, that's not possible. So that was something that was looked into. it was not feasible to do for whatever reason with the league. There will be things, I promise, when you come out there that you will see that will be honoring Jim Brown. So don't worry about that. But the franchise obviously think about everything that's happened. They understand the importance of it. I just want people to understand that at midfield that was not possible. So
okay, so the NFL rules at midfield must be then that it has to be a logo.
I don't know the specifics of the rules, so
mark?
I won't comment on it. But I think it's got to be it's either got to be a logo.
I think, by the way, you and I have been doing this show for, is it 6 years, going into our 7th year?
Yeah.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard you say I won't comment on that.
Oh, it probably is true. And there's definitely been other things I wouldn't comment on.
No, usually you and I steer away from those things entirely.
Yes.
But I mean, in terms of I won't comment on that, that was a very PR-savvy answer out of you. That was a very...
Because I don't know the rules.
No, it's true.
I don't know
Smart.
what the actual rule is.
Yeah.
I just know that was not within the confines of the rules.
That wasn't possible.
So don't take that. That's not on the Browns. That's not happening.
Okay, very good. Because I was among them. I thought that was kind of a no-brainer. Just put a 32 at midfield and then you're done.
That's what spurred it for me. As I do follow you on social.
Nice.
And you
very
said
nice.
I saw somebody hit you up with that, and you said you love it. Would be a great tribute. So I wanted to make sure that we.
All right. So it is down to the dog that was done this summer, and then the elf.
Yep.
That's running. That's where you're at on those two things. I just my vote on that would have been nothing. I like nothing at midfield for the Browns. For me, I'm a big nothing.
People did not like nothing. At
I know.
Midfield,
Apparently, they don't like nothing. I'm old school in that regard. Like I like the idea of nothing. The helmet's been at midfield forever. That's the primary logo. That's fine too. Between these two, for me, it's the running elf by 100 miles.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I like the elf. I like the elf of those two choices as well. I do think if the Browns ever, get to a point where maybe that logo involves a different colored face mask.
Yeah.
That maybe you'll see that might return to the midfield area.
Yeah, I think that would be very, very cool. We've had a bunch of different field designs here. For as traditional as this franchise is, it's looked a lot of different ways through the years. I mean, there's the script Cleveland. We had the stripes, remember? When we had the color rush, we had that. That was there for a while. We've had nothing at midfield. We've had a helmet at midfield. Last year you had Brownie at midfield. I would be a proponent of the elf at midfield over the dog.
And I like there'd be nice a little continuity as well. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with that. I think we all care much more about the play on the field than what is ultimately on the field.
Of course, but this is a sacred brand. And so there is there is a great deal of give a damn for it. And so there is people, they take ownership of it, because it's something that they've hung their hat on and, they've done their Sundays to for the time that they were born. So there is something to that, certainly in terms of the importance of it. And I think honestly, like anytime there's outrage about anything or either outrage positively or negatively that you get about anything, it just speaks to the passion that the fan base has. Like that's going nowhere. So it just means so much to so many people. Speaking of meaning so much to so many people, the Hoff will be honored. His Ring of Excellence ceremony will be at the stadium week 4 against the Ravens. That is on October 1st. I guess I know which game I will be going to this year with the boys. Going to be wanting to make sure we go to that one. That'll be a lot of fun to see
Absolutely.
Hoff in that situation. How was the meal last night?
Oh, it was great. And, last night, myself, the Hoff, and Chris Rose, we went out.
Where was Gibby?
I don't know where Gibby was last night. We didn't cross paths, Gibby and I. We went to, so you'll appreciate this. We wanted to, try something different. And a couple of our team doctors are big foodies, Dr. Salata and Dr. Cup and Voos. Are big foodies, and so we were kind of talking to them about where we had been and the meal we'd had the night before, and they said, "Oh yeah, you guys check out this place, Kalea, Kalaya, Kalea." So the chef there just won the James Beard Award for the best chef in the Mid-Atlantic region.
Fantastic.
So it's a James Beard Award-winning place. It's Thai food.
Okay.
And it was awesome. It was one of the best meals that I've ever had.
Give me the order.
Now,
is it table ordering, or are you ordering for yourselves? Tell me.
We ordered for the table. For the table. So here's what we got. So they have 3 dumplings on the menu. We got all 3. One was first was bird-shaped dumplings with caramelized cod and preserved radish, delightful. Yep. Then the 5 flower-shaped dumplings with ground chicken, cucumber, and a Thai chili. It was like this black dumpling that was served on top of a cucumber slice with a chili slice right on top. That was delectable. And then this one was the craziest thing I've ever seen. 5 steamed rice cups with shiitake mushrooms, bamboo shoots, and a spicy sweet soy sauce. And that sauce was spicy. So it was almost like a gelatinous cup, and inside it was filled with the mushrooms and the bamboo shoots. But the cup was actually made of rice. So it was as if they created – we almost thought they must have like pureed the sticky rice down, kept it sticky somehow, and then like squeezed it into a mold to make these like – it was so interesting and good. So we got those. Then they have 3 apps on the menu. You guessed it. We got all 3 of those apps. So they had a grilled squid with coconut oil and cilantro that was awesome. Big garlic chive rice cakes with a spicy sweet soy sauce. These came out. They were black rice cakes that looked like a black Rice Krispies treat. Okay. When you bit it, I thought that's just what it was going to be, like a Rice Krispies treat. The center was this gooey, liquid garlic chive goodness center. So you bit it, and it was crispy like a Rice Krispie treat all around the outside, except the center was this warm, gooey, garlicky goodness. Like, it blew all of our minds. That might have been everybody's favorite. And then we got a grilled Berkshire pork chop with tamarind, palm sugar, and coriander glaze. It was just chopped up. It was like an app. And then we got the duck salad. We got a colossal lump crab curry over glass noodles with a house curry paste and a lime leaf. That was awesome. We got the peppercorn beef tenderloin with long hot scallion and served jasmine rice. And then we got a steamed whole bronzino with lime, chicken stock, fish sauce, cilantro, and a seafood namjim served over jasmine. The whole fish.
Oh, the big guy.
In this, like, unbelievable sauce. That was one of the best things I've ever – honestly, this was one of the best things I've ever had. So we had that, and then we got some cabbage, and then we got a delicious dessert, and it was an incredible meal. The best part is it was a ton – all of it was unique, and you really felt like you were tasting some things you'd never had before.
Yeah.
And then we ate a lot of stuff as I just went through. At the end, we get back to the hotel, and everybody's ready to go. We're all taking it easy after the night or whatever. And Hop's like, yeah, I'm just going to go up the escalator and see if they have any dinner still left out upstairs. He's like, that was a light meal. I probably could have eaten another one. I was like, we could have ordered more. We could. He's incredible.
He's like a prize brown spotted. He wants to keep grazing.
He wants to keep grazing. Chris was like shocked when he's like, wait, what do you mean you want to go see if they have more dinner out? And unfortunately for him, there was nothing out. He is built different. But
rank them. Give me the 3.
So you
had the steak.
Oh man.
On Monday, you did the tapas, and then you did the Thai. Give it to me. 1, 2, 3.
It's almost impossible. It really is.
You said
what I would say is, last night I would put first because it was so unique to me. Like, the steakhouse crushed a steakhouse. It was
but anybody can have a steakhouse.
Elite steakhouse. Right. Yeah. So from a uniqueness standpoint, I'd probably put the steakhouse third, even though that meal was bonkers.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about, like they're all on the this is like 1A and 1B. These are not like, there's not enough room to drive like a couple of ants in an Antmobile couldn't drive through the gap between the restaurants. That's how tight. That's how tight it is. It's very small. What is this? A school for aunts?
So when's the last time you've seen Gibbe?
Like 20 minutes ago.
No, what's he up to?
Or 30 minutes ago, he dropped off the Comrex.
What's he doing?
He's running around. I think he's a little hectic right now. Game day. I don't think he's Gibbe.
He's done a lot of these game days.
Oh yeah, he does.
I feel like it'd be routine.
I just think the hotel when he's got to go. Who knows? I don't know. It's Gibbe. I got this Comrex. We have to do an interview. Yeah, he does like a big lead time. He likes to be there at least 48 hours in advance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like to get there 7 hours before kick. just to make sure.
Yeah, right. Just to make sure.
Look, it's folks just from a game tonight, and we'll go through like position by position, like roster battles, who can make a little bit of hay, who has momentum,
Sure.
those type of things coming up in the second hour. But I would just say this: thank goodness you have DTR, because for the fan who's not into position battles on the offensive line and those type of things, you've got an exciting quarterback that you're going to get to see again tonight, who's been really fun the first 2 weeks and will be fun again tonight. He's going to start. He gets the whole first half. There's some juice to that. That makes this a lot better than perhaps it would have been otherwise.
Yeah, of course. There is some excitement, and there's some things that, you just want to see fun football. I'd love to see a whole game of our guy at the quarterback position. That's not a knock on it. Incredibly fun to watch. This game it's the storylines of people fighting for their NFL lives more than anything, and that's on this team and to stay with the Browns. It's wild. That's why this feels super to me, and maybe because last year, because it was at home, we had the joint practices, and then we went to the game.
What's he doing?
What?
Is he listening to us on an app? I'm getting all these tweets, all these texts.
From who?
Gibbe.
From Gibbe?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Who knows? You're laughing. I was like, I don't know.
It's amazing. Like he's on it.
Sure it is. Got to be on the bus at 1:30. Last night he was dive bar hopping and went to the Liberty Bell. Okay.
Perfect.
Gibbe.
He's got to be on the bus at 1:30. Got to get down there. God bless. God bless the great Gibbe.
You started laughing. And I was like, am I saying something insane?
No. You were perfect. I just was amazing to me. Like, he is en route to go do the game. He's obviously listening on the app.
Yeah.
Is the only way he could be hearing us because, again, you are currently in Philadelphia. And while we're quite popular in the world scene, I'm guessing we're not on WIP or whatever it is over there. So
no.
That's the way that works. So it just struck me funny that he wanted a full retort to retort any sort of comments that I were or you were making on his behalf. Yeah. So it is. You're right. It's guys fighting for their lives. We'll go over some of the spots of that. We'll go around the NFL coming up next. Chris Rosen about 10 minutes from now. We're off and running on a game day edition. Cleveland Browns Daily brought to you by Bally Bet, sports betting partner, your Cleveland Browns, coming soon to Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Celebrate the 18th Cleveland Brown being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That was the off. Tide Cleaners has an incredible offer. Enjoy $8 off any order of 18 or more. Just mention Browns at drop-off. Tide Cleaners is your one-stop shop for all dry cleaning and laundry service needs. Visit TideCleaners.com to find a location nearest you. Some exclusions may apply. See store for details. We go around the NFL. Of these, I think probably the most interesting one. I don't believe for a second that Ron Rivera is not going to have Sam Howell as the starter. I don't buy that for a second. There'd be no point.
No.
We love Jacoby, but I mean, come on. Be no point in that whatsoever. Treylon Burks could miss multiple weeks with an LCL sprain that is coming out of Titans camp, the first-round pick. We played the Titans in week 3.
We certainly do. Yeah, some injuries kind of racking up around the league, it feels like. And so far, knock on wood for the Browns, of their players of consequence, we have not dealt with that.
The Chargers enshrining former tight end Antonio Gates into the Chargers Hall of Fame. He is up for the Pro Football Hall of Fame next season. I'm sure this is Stevie who wants to know, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? I don't think first ballot, but I think he'll get in.
So,
who's in the class? It starts there, right?
Yeah, my inclination when you said, is Antonio Gates a first ballot Hall of Fame, my inclination would have been yes. So I'm going to go
Pull it up.
The total accolades, but in my mind,
all right. Well, you're pulling that up. I'm going to see who's eligible
of the modern era. So, like of our lifetime. So I'm not counting Kellen Winslow and Ozzie Newsome. The 3 best tight ends of our lifetime have been, without question, Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, and Gronk, and now Travis Kelce. I think would be the 4th to go into that list.
Oh,
so
he's
8-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, and these numbers, people will say, well, that's not that crazy. But back then, for a tight end to be at 81, 964, and 13, 89, 1110, 71, 924, 9, 75, 984, 9, 60, 704, and 8, 1157, and 8, 780, and 10, 780, and 7. Then even later in his career, in his 11th season, he has 821 and 12. I mean, he's got to be, in terms of tight end stats, he's got to be one of the top ever. I'm trying to look at the Pro Football Reference has their Hall of Fame monitor, they call it.
He's for sure first ballot now that I look at this class too, because Peppers is the first ballot. Julius Peppers and Gates, they headline what would be the class of new eligibles. The other is Eric Berry, whose career was cut short. Haloti Ngata's in this class as well. Jamal Charles, Brandon Marshall. I mean, it just isn't the type of class where there's going to be 5 first ballots. There will be guys that have missed it that'll get in from previous years. I think because of it, this is not a particularly strong class. I think both he and Gates will be, both Gates and Peppers will be first ballot.
Like, he's 7th all time in receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, he's going in.
Yeah, that was my natural inclination. You know, he's on the all-decade team. He's got. Yeah, I think if you broke it based on for tight ends only, I mean, the only people I think whose numbers could even come close to his would be Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he did it. Gates was in the league from 2003 was his rookie year, and he hung him up in 2018.
Jeez.
11,841 yards receiving, 955 catches, 116 touchdowns. Yeah, I think so. I mean, he made 8 straight Pro Bowls from the ages of 24 to 31. He was a Pro Bowler 8 straight years.
Yep.
And I feel like back in the day, that meant a lot more than the Pro Bowl now. I don't remember all the replacements and this because it was after the season. You didn't get the Super Bowl replacements, so you didn't get all those. Like, think about it. Last year, the Eagles had 8 Pro Bowlers. So there are 8 people who are Pro Bowlers that wouldn't have been on it under the old format, just on the NFC team from a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that those 8 that he has in a row back in that era that's significant. That's a significant stat.
Yeah. No, he's a first, and Peppers will be a first. He won't go in, but Jamal Charles has some of the most ridiculous. He has 2 of the most ridiculous years. He was a first team All-Pro once. 1467 in 2010, 1467 yards, 6.4 a carry that year in 2010.
He is the all-time leader.
Yeah.
He's all-time career leader in yards per carry for his career at
5.4.
Right. Chubb was right there and was knocking on the door of him because it's a certain number of carry threshold. Was on the door, but then last year I think he ended up at like 5 flat for the season, did Nick, and so he came down just a little bit to 5.2. Yeah, he was on the brink of going it because the 2 years prior were 5.6 and 5.5. But yeah, Jamal Charles average to do that for your career in the NFL is ludicrous.
Yeah, just doesn't have the longevity. Eric Berry's an interesting one with the career cut short. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. Probably not enough, but the career is the career just got. He's a 3-time first-team All-Pro.
Yeah,
was Eric Berry. He's basically done at age 28.
That's wild.
Yeah, missed his second year in the league with cancer, wasn't it?
He did. Yeah, when he was a young player. He was drafted in the same draft class as Joe Hayden.
That's right. Yeah. So Peppers and Gates will be your first ballot guys in next year's Hall of Fame. Real quickly before we get to Rose, tell me about this bug you saw. Oh, Gibby says break, so you got 60 seconds to tell me about the bug.
It needs more time than that.
More time? All right, reject it then. Just say I can't comment.
I won't comment. It's the most terrifying bug I've ever seen.
See, you have that to look forward to, which is nice. Chris, how was Gibby listening on the app? Chris Rose coming up next. You're listening to the Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Hey, Browns fans, you want to experience the 2023 Browns season in some of the best seats in Cleveland Browns Stadium? Visit lecom.edu/Browns for your chance to win 2 field seats for the 2023 season, courtesy of Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine. Sweepstakes ends on August 30th as we head out on the Twisted Tea hotline. Brought to you by Twisted Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. It is the NFL Network host. He is the voice of the television preseason games right here. He is our play-by-play announcer. He is Chris Rose. He joins us. He was a dinner companion of Z last night. I want to start there. Can you take me through your mindset? Z told the story. You guys have this incredible meal. You get back to the hotel, and Hoff says, I need to graze a little bit more.
I didn't understand it. I thought he was just going up to, like, the training area just to get some waters for his room. And then he's like, no food. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I almost lost my dinner as we got out of the Uber after. I was like, I really don't feel great. As great as the meal was, I was like, I think I ate 25% more than I should have. And he did it with a dozen beers in him. And I was like, what? This isn't, like, real what's happening. You weren't real hungry. He's like, oh, yeah, I am. He goes, but I won't eat until tomorrow anyway, right before the game. I was like, okay. So I texted him this morning. I said, hey, we had a quick production meeting. I said, you want to walk around a little bit? And he sent me a photo of him eating a bagel out in the streets at 10 in the morning. I was like, so what happened to your game plan? He's like, research, pal,
fasting
research.
till dinner.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. Wow. He is just, he is built different.
He's incredible. He is. He's like, it was a light meal. I'm still hungry. We're like, what are you talking about? And then the beers, he pointed that out. So he sat down and immediately goes, we're going to do these 2 at a time tonight. That's what he told the waitress. And so,
oh, really? That was the line?
It was two singers at a time, and there were many orders. But so, Chris, I was saying that I thought it was stunning when I was out with him, basically every night that I've been out with him, but where he was starting to really get into the beers in addition to everything else, that I never saw him actually drinking the beer. I just knew that they were gone. No. It was stunning to me how he does it.
Usually when you're out with friends and they have a dozen beers, they aren't the same person as when you sat down at the table. Just naturally. He was exactly the same. Nothing. I was like, Jesus. I said, I think I'm getting drunk just by osmosis from sitting across the way from him. It was quite. I think maybe that's part of the reason he got into Canton.
Yeah, that could be.
I even ordered one of the beers myself so he could have somebody else to have a beer with him, and it took me a while to put that beer down. I'm not a beer guy. It's just like incredible.
Impressive. Yeah, it was good time.
Great times. We really enjoyed it. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was fun. Now we'll get to work in a couple hours. Can't wait.
Is this from your perspective, and by the way, thank goodness you have DTR, right? I mean, you would have loved to, if you had your way, you'd be calling the practices on Monday and Tuesday because that's where a lot of the fun stuff is. But in terms of tonight's game, how much is the fact that you have this exciting rookie quarterback? I mean, this first half, that changes a lot of things, doesn't it, Chris?
Of course it does. I mean, he's been the player of the preseason in the NFL, not only for the Cleveland Browns, I mean, the entire league, right? Because he is a familiar name. He started almost 50 games at UCLA. He's been in the football conscience for a while, and now people are like, oh, kind of cool to see him at the next level. And, this will be broadcast nationally on NFL Network, so people will get a chance to see him there, too, which is nice. So I just think it's fun whether he ends up at some point being the backup this year or just down the line. It's a cool story. Obviously we love it with the Cedric Tillman angle, which is great that, quarterback receiver from Bishop Gorman gets to do it. I think it's all fascinating. But and he's going to get a chance to go against a bunch of their starters. Their safety rotation is not yet set in stone, with the exception of Reed Blankenship, who was ridiculous against us in the practices this week. They're going to be playing all their safeties, I think, and all their linebackers. So, and we know that their second-string defensive front is really good, too. So this will be a nice test for him.
Who else are you excited to see on? We'll stay on the offense, on the Browns' offense in this game.
I suppose receiver-wise, Nathan, we talked about this. The first four are kind of set in stone. And then where do they go from there? And I think that's the big question. We just don't know about the health moving forward of Marquise Goodwin anytime soon. So let's say that we don't have him for the foreseeable future. David Bell, I thought, looked pretty good last week. Anthony Schwartz had a really good week from what I understand in practice. Mike Harley is an interesting guy, right? But Austin Watkins Jr. has just jumped off the charts. You guys started talking about him, and then I saw him in person at practice a couple of times last week. And then we've seen him in the 2 games so far. And he just doesn't screw up, and he makes plays, and he's a solid body. Like, that's a guy I'm watching. I don't know how he plays special teams, so that's obviously a big part of that equation toward the back end of the roster. But I can tell you this, man, the name of the game is being a wide receiver. When they throw in the ball, he catches it and moves chains.
Yeah, that's an important part, the catch part. You got to get that. Yeah. He does. He has that, Chris.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Doesn't always work out that way, Bo.
No, I know. No, I'm saying we know that all too well. So, like, that part of it is that's critical, certainly. I'm curious. One thing that I'm noticing, and not just in our games, but around the league, is it feels like every coach is still kind of trying to figure out how to do this 3 preseason thing. It feels like there's different philosophies game to game, different philosophies team to team. We saw one, the Jets in Carolina over the weekend, where Carolina played their ones. The Jets almost exclusively did not. We've seen ones where Sean Payton kept Russell Wilson out there for 4 drives, like waiting to have some success. As you're talking to Nick Sirianni, we know obviously what the Browns are going to do tonight. Kevin has said as much. But as you talk to Sirianni, how is he approaching tonight?
Well, I personally did not talk to him, but I do, I'm close with the other television broadcast team.
Yeah.
So, you won't see a lot of their stars, right, on offense. Or you won't see Hurts. You won't see their number 1 offensive line. You won't see A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. But you will see the next guys in line. Like, you'll see, Quez Watkins is a little banged up, but you will see Olamide Zaccheaus, whom they brought in from Atlanta. You'll see probably Greg Ward is my guess, but you're going to see almost their full stable of running backs. And part of that is a differing philosophy between Kevin Stefanski and Nick Sirianni, and also in part because of the situations they're in. Sirianni, from what I understand, does not want his running backs being hit for the first time day 1 of the season. Whereas Kevin Stefanski, if he puts Nick Chubb out there, God forbid he twists an ankle in the preseason.
Oh, my God.
Like, y'all are going to have content to talk about. It's not going to be very pleasant. So it's just such a different situation, right? He's got 4 guys that have done it in the NFL to varying degrees of success, but not one of them is close to Nick Chubb. So you're going to see a bunch of really capable running backs. And I throw this point out there. I'll make it tonight on the broadcast. Don't think that Andrew Berry didn't watch the Eagles running backs room closely this week. Just in case one of those guys shakes loose, because they do have 4 guys that have been successful NFL players, and they're not all going to be playing on Sundays.
Yeah, it's a great point. And he's talking about the 4. He means DeAndre Swift. By the way, DeAndre Swift, the Eagles, I feel like, just stole him. You go and look at what he's done for his career, and he hasn't been healthy all year, every year. And all he's done is average 959 total yards and 8.3 touchdowns a year in his 3 seasons there. They bring in Rashad Penny, who, for his career, averages 5.7 yards a carry. He's never played more than 10 games in a season, so obviously injuries there, a former first-rounder. They got Boston Scott, who's always productive. Kenneth Gainwell is always productive for them as well. So, yeah, that's a room. And then they got the former Buckeye, Trey Sermon, who just hasn't been able to get it done in the NFL. Again, injuries a problem there. So it is an interesting room, and you're right. I think that one of the things we'll watch tonight, Chris, are the Browns running backs, because you won't see Chubb or Ford. And, can Demetric Felton continue kind of what we've seen? He's been the leading rusher each of the 2 games. Can he, solidify that 3rd job, or is that still very much, maybe even the second with Ford hurt, is that person somewhere else right now? Is that person one of these Eagles running backs, for example? Is that person, one of the guys with the Jets now that they've signed Dalvin Cook? So I think that running back position's interesting, and I know you do too. So what are you looking for there? Are you going to be watching their running backs as much as you're watching our own?
I think that's what fans should do. I mean, if you're looking for reasons to watch, that's part of the narrative here, is that you could see our running backs room, right? We went into the NFL season last year with the number one running backs room, right? Between Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Dearness. And you were like, wow, that is awesome. Well, this year it's Nick Chubb and nobody else that has more than 32 carries in the NFL until they signed Jordan Wilkins this week, who's a guy who's had some experience with Indianapolis, but I don't know if that's the answer or not.
Right.
So you have to pay attention to it. It makes perfect sense. And, yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know how hurt Jerome Ford is. None of us. But this was going to be critical time for him. Like, he needs to get some carries because what did he play, 14 offensive snaps or something a year ago? You're asking a lot of a guy that doesn't have a ton of experience at this level to back up Nick Chubb because this isn't a video game. We just can't run him into the ground. There were times last year where we're all screaming, like, why isn't he into the game? Well, this year he's going to be in those positions, but you don't want him playing 90% of the snaps or 92% of the snaps. So we got to sew that part up.
Chris, one of the great pleasures that Z and I have had with having the Hoff on the show is when he starts talking about offensive line. And it's not the sexiest conversation for the total audience, but it's just to hear like a true master discuss what goes through his mind. And so I'm bringing this up because you mentioned DTR, one of the stars of the preseason. I think probably the other one has been DeJuan Jones. I mean, he has been an absolute rocket ship in terms of his stock. That is something you guys, I'm guessing, provide he plays a lot, which he has in every game to this point, and I'm sure he will tonight. There's a little nugget out there for the broadcast, I would assume, is DeJuan Jones, could he eventually is he forcing himself, I don't know, onto the field? Is he forcing the plans of this team long term?
Yeah, well, bite your tongue on the sexiness factor, Bo. I mean, come on now. If you can't love 374 pounds at 6'8", what can you love?
What can you love, baby?
Yeah, I mean, Joe is like frothing at the mouth, and my buddy Brian Baldinger from NFL Network has done now 2 Baldy's breakdowns on him, one after each game, so he can't get enough of him. And it is fun. It's 6'8", 374 pounds is fun to talk about. And there was never a question about his talent. The reason he went to day 3 is because people had questions about work ethic. Who is he? All that sort of stuff. Well, guess what? For once, we might have found a gem. Well, usually it's Philly who's finding guys that slide down the board. This one might work in our favor. And Joe says he's just a terrific talent. He's going to be talking about him a lot. And the biggest question you start with is, can he be our swing tackle, right? That's the first one you go with. Mm-hmm. Because we don't have that experienced guy right now. God forbid something happens to Jack Conklin, like right now he's in concussion protocol, or something happens to Jed, and he's had a few times in recent years where he's missed a game because of an ankle or something like that. Has gutted it through most of the time, but one of those guys might go down. Are you comfortable putting your rookie in there? And I think what he's showing us is that, and we get it, he hasn't moved to the left side yet. Kevin Stefanski made that very apparent. But it wouldn't shock me if at some point they give him some run there and say, that's our swing guy. We'd love to redshirt him, but maybe he's up next.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. James Hudson probably is the guy going into his third year who would have that title right now, and the question would be, can DeJuan, take that from him? And going in these joint practices, we didn't think he was going to get first-team reps. Kevin said that much going onto the field. Well, as that second-day practice unfolded, he did get those first-team reps and had a great accounting of himself. So I thought that was – it feels like a steal. A lot of people are excited about it. A long way to go, but what an unbelievable mountain of clay, and he's in the capable hands of Bill Callahan and Scott Peters there on our offensive line. Let's flip it around defensively, because offensively, Thanos, you won't miss him. You talked about some of the skill guys. You'll be able to see that DTR. defensively, Ronnie Hickman, his nickname's Rocket. He rocketed, right into roster contention with those 2 interceptions. What do you think about him, the young man from Ohio State, and, anything else that jumps out to you on what you want to see on defense, since we won't be seeing the big marquee names?
So, Bo, you could probably speak to this a little bit more, but
yeah.
My best friend is a guy named Jay Novotny, whom I grew up with in Cleveland, and he is an enormous Buckeyes fan, and we would talk ad nauseum about Ronnie Hickman during the Buckeyes season. And he'd be like, God, one game he's unbelievable, and then the next game he disappears.
Yeah.
And I think, fair or unfair, that has been the narrative that followed him from Columbus to Cleveland. So the question is, can he continue that run? Because he was great last week. And, he showed 2 different ways of picking off the ball, right? Playing center field, making up a lot of ground with the ball in the air, and then another one where it was a little more quick, right? And then he was also part of a coverage where Jahan Dotson split 2 guys and ended up catching a touchdown. So can we see more consistency? I think this would be an amazing group of safeties for him to learn from. I mean, right, Grant Delpit now seems so comfortable in the last year of his rookie deal. They bring in Juan Thornhill, who's done nothing but win. And then you've got Rodney McLeod, who is an undrafted free agent and now has been in the NFL in more than a decade and is a Super Bowl champ himself. And I just think that he is a talent. Sometimes with that lack of consistency, you need guys who can look you in the eye and be able to tell you this is how you do it every week. So I love his talent. I want to see him show it again tonight.
I think the one thing about you nailed the Ronnie evaluation. I think one thing that has to be that you don't know unless you really pay attention to it on that side, and your buddy you'd know this too, Chris, but just for our audience, Ronnie played in 3 different defensive systems at Ohio State. They had 3 different coordinators during the time that he was there. The inconsistency was real in terms of what your buddy said, in terms of great one day and then disappears the next. But some of that too is they had 3 different systems, and the first 2 systems were different on the back end almost entirely that he would have worked in. So they were as a unit inconsistent during that time. So I think sometimes that stuck to him, and maybe it didn't deserve to. And not just him, but a lot of the guys who played defense for Ohio State from 19 to 22, the way that Ronnie did. But I think that is fair. The criticism is on point, but there are reasons for it.
Hey, by the way, Bo, the last thing I want to do is give my best friend any credit. He doesn't need it, okay? He's the smartest guy I've ever known. He went to Harvard undergrad, Virginia law. So the last thing I want to do, if you want to say, hey, go back to Jay and tell him he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, I would in fact, I might give you his number after this, so you can call him up and say he has no idea what he's talking about, because I would.
We'll strike it from the record. We'll strike it from the record. It'll not be in the transcript. Any praise for your buddy. That's done for Jay. No praise, Jay.
Yeah, exactly. None for Jay. Forget that guy.
Chris.
Forget him.
Forget Jay. Let's talk about Cade. In your mind, is the most important thing that you can see in the game today is Cade York get a few field goal attempts and make them all?
Yes. In fact, if we're on the opening drive and it's 3rd and short, I want to see DTR take a knee.
Yep.
I'm with you.
Just because. You know,
I'm with you.
I listened to you earlier this week. I listened to you earlier this week where you were talking about the last drive and how you just almost wanted to see him have a field goal attempt. Or maybe, Nathan, it was you, and then, Bo, you said, well, what happens if he misses? And then he falls to 0-3 this year on field goal tries.
That's it, yeah.
And, yeah, it was a great discussion because we're all in the same boat, right? And we understand the public face that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry are putting on here. And we're going to have Andrew in the booth during the 3rd quarter tonight to talk to him. We're going to ask him about the kicking situation. And my point is this. I would like to know why they didn't bring in competition for him. Not necessarily somebody that was going to take his job, but at least to ratchet it up a little bit there. It's hard to find. There aren't 32 good people doing this on the planet. I don't know if you guys noticed, but like the Dallas Cowboys just made a kicking change.
Yeah.
The Rams didn't have a kicker until after the draft. Like, it's crazy how we cannot find 32 human beings that can do this on a consistent basis. So it's very challenging. Last year was the lowest margin of victory in the NFL since the 1930s for a single season. So that means there are plenty of games that are coming down to that last kick. We need to feel good as a fan base about it, and right now we're on shaky ground, and I think that the team understands that perception. I just think that they're hopeful, much like we are.
Yeah. Look forward to the call, buddy. Thank you so much for the time.
Yes.
Greatly appreciate it. The great Chris Rose. Thanks, buddy.
As always, guys, it's good catching up. And, Nathan, I'll see you at the stadium. Bo, I hope to see you around Cleveland at some point.
Looking forward to it,
Yes,
buddy.
sir. Can't wait.
All right. The
Thank
great
you, guys.
Chris Rose. Joining us on the Twisted Tea hotline. You'll hear Joel Bitonio coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And when a medical mistake causes you injury, call the medical malpractice attorneys at 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. And now let's go to the podium and Joel Bitonio.
Things got a little chippy there with DeJuan Jones. What you see?
You know, we're going into this week trying to get better in practice and work, and you know, sometimes there's some cheap shots and things like that where you want to defend yourself. And I don't know the exact situation, but there was a couple shots today where, you know, we're trying to make sure we're getting the best out of practice and not fighting. But it was just a little heated. Second day, it always gets a little bit more fired up, you know.
It seemed like Coach Stefanski tried to calm things down too, and huddle the Eagles.
Yeah, he taught. It's we don't want to fight out here. We want to get better, and when two teams are competing, things are going to get fired up. So it happens, but Coach tried to calm us down, and when he has the offense and their defense, so we try and control those situations.
You try to avoid it, but can you kind of feel it coming?
Oh yeah, I mean that's why you do 2 days, because 3 days it would be a bloodbath the last day. So even 2 days gets a little bit chippy the second day. You know, you go back, you watch the film. You're like, oh, we got to do this better. They got to do this better, and you know the next day is going to be a little bit more ramped up.
So was there some stuff that you guys didn't like that they were doing, or?
No, I mean, it's just in our practice you protect the quarterback. You don't want to come close to the quarterback. You don't want to take cheap shots, things like that. Where there might have been a couple where, you know, questionable, you know, plays both ways today.
As you walk off the field, how do you feel? You know, how would you assess the way these 2 days went?
Personally, it was a little hot, so I'm a little tired. But no, I think there's some growth. You know, I think our both defenses, I think yesterday probably won the day. You know, the last 2 minute period today, they obviously got the best of us. But I think there's some growth. Some guys stepped up today for us. You know, you get a feel against different rushers, because in practice I'm going against a couple guys a day. Here I get a couple new guys, you know what I mean? So you feel some different rushes, you feel some different techniques. They have one of the better D-lines in the league, maybe, you know, some say the best. You know, we have a pretty good D-line too. So it's good to go out there and battle and, you know, test out some of your techniques.
It looked like they were, a lot of times in the 11-on-11, they were going with DeJuan and Michael with the ones and Wyatt and James with the twos. Was that kind of planned that they were kind of mixing up some things on the right side?
You know, I think Jack got a little banged up, and they wanted to get some reps for different guys and stuff and fill it out. I don't know the exact reasoning, but I know they just wanted to, you know, get some reps. I know DeJuan's been doing some good things. Michael does some good things. So I think they're just trying to get him some reps against different competition as well.
Joel, how do you feel in general about doing these joint practices? I mean, when Amari was talking about them yesterday, he was like, these are like playing in games because they're so intense. I mean, how do you feel about doing this?
Yeah, very intense. You know, for me, it's like a game day. You know, you wake up, you have those kind of nerves and stuff. It's just a little bit different atmosphere. You know, I think Coach Stefanski does a good job of the guys that practice a lot don't have to play in the game, because it is like game-like atmosphere. I woke up this morning a little bit sore and a little bit beat up. You know, you run 30, 35 full-speed plays against a team, and it's like half a game. So you get that feel. You know, today was a little bit shorter and stuff, but no, it's good work.
How does it feel with even from the start of training camp, being able to have Ethan alongside? I know last year it was kind of in the midst of things of injuries. How has it been really with them doing the full training camp session?
Yeah, he's always locked in. It's good though. He's focused. It's good to, you know, we got like 12 or 13 starts last year out of him. And so to come out here and really get from camp, you start getting a better feel. You know, our whole line really, I mean, Poe's coming back now, but our whole line really has been, you know, together for 4 years besides Poe. So we're getting a little bit more comfortable understanding how each guy moves and the techniques and just communication and stuff.
The control was really there when he was in the line. And it felt, I mean, how would you really separate him past, you know, compared to past centers that you've been outside of?
No, he's good. I mean, I've had some good centers. You know, JC and Alex are my guys, but Poe's right up there with him. You know, he comes out there and he communicates, he competes. You know, we joke around because he's so focused on every day. Sometimes I try and make him smile in the huddle, and it never works. But no, he's a good one to have out there.
How do things change in terms of the ramp up? You know, now that you have these 2 days of kind of evidence to, you know, and things to build off of.
Yeah, I think for, you know, an older guy like me is just continue to work my conditioning, make sure I get as many reps as I need in practice, focus on things. I know we have like more of a simulated game week next week against Kansas City, so really try and hone in on your routine when it comes to that. But besides that, keep working. We're still a ways away, so there's a lot of time to to continue to improve and get better as a team.
You expect to play against Kansas City?
I'm not sure yet. He has not told us.
When you have the 2 days of this and then you don't have another practice again until Sunday, like how do you digest these 2 practices, I guess, in terms of like the watching film, what you take away from them, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, the group, we didn't have meetings last night because it was so late, but a lot of the group came in and watched it last night. We watched it this morning. We'll watch it again tonight and tomorrow morning and digest that. It's a lot of good work, and then, if you're not playing in the game, you find a way to get some work in, some flexibility stuff, take care of your body, get ready for next week, and cheer on the guys that are going to be out there and competing.
I know it's a red zone at all a concern to the number one offense. I mean, it's not just out here, but during camp, it's been rough too.
Yeah, we're working through it. I think our defense sees the concepts that we're running in practice, so they saw it throughout OTAs, they saw it throughout minicamp. We have some good players on defense, so they find some things. Today we didn't convert as much as we wanted, but I think it's stuff we're working through. I think you want to see your defense compete early in camp because they usually have a step up on the offense, but I think we're working our way through, and I am not concerned at this moment about it.
I know it's a long process and we still got 90 guys here, but looking back to last year and then this year too, do you walk away from joint practices like this with a good idea of like, okay, this is who we are, like this is the team we have?
Some guys step up, but it's such a long preseason that you don't know what's going to happen injury-wise or trade-wise or, cut downs. There's so much that goes into it. And it feels like a team right now when you have 90 guys. It's always hard when you cut down. You never know, who you're going to lose in the cut downs.
I asked that. I meant just like the personality of the team.
Oh, yeah. You start to get an understanding for sure. We have a lot of competitive guys. Our defensive line, I think you saw flashes of what they can be yesterday and today. So you definitely start to see personality stuff coming out. It's still not full speed. Chubb's not getting tackled and things are like that. But it's you get a better understanding for sure.
It seems like Elijah obviously hasn't been here long, but it just seems like you guys lose a lot when he's not out there in team drills. I guess do you feel that difference when you're missing him in particular?
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of our, I want to say queen on the chessboard. They can move everywhere, you know what I mean? I don't play chess, but I was trying to use a quote. But no, and I think they want to get him the ball. They realize he's an explosive player. He's played some running back in his past, and I think they want to use our weapons. Whatever our strengths are, they want to use it, and he's a good complement to Amari, to David, to DPJ, to Nick. So it's gonna be good. I know he hasn't been out there. It would have been nice to see him out there the last couple of days, but we're getting him healthy for week 1.
Just from perspective on Bitonio and where he's at, guys, he's coming off of back-to-back first-team All-Pro seasons, 2021 and 2022. Previous to that, it was 3 straight second-team All-Pro seasons. That's 5 All-Pro nods consecutively now for Joe. Also 5 straight Pro Bowl appearances for Joel Bitonio. So what the long and short of it is, he stacks a couple of more of these, and he's going to be joining his good buddy Joe Thomas in the Hall of Fame with one of those gold jackets. Coming up next, what can you get out of the game as a fan? Plus Z will go through position by position, some things to look forward to. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. One of the most passionate fan bases in the NFL. Join the Browns season ticket member waitlist today for the best chance at securing tickets for all home games in future seasons. Don't miss out. Go to clevelandbrowns.com/tickets or call 440-891-5050 to reserve your spot today. Z, let's just kind of go position group by position group in terms of where your eyes will be tonight. Obviously, we'll start at quarterback, and that one's pretty simple.
Yeah, my eyes are going to be on my man DTR. Coming off a game last week, he was 9 of 10 for 102 yards and a touchdown, 142.5 rating. On the preseason as a whole, he's 17 of 21, 81%, 184 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a rating of 135. He's led 3 touchdown drives of more than 75 yards. I love the kid. I love his leadership. I love everything about him. I'm very excited to watch him. And then it was good to see Kellen Mond bounce back last week. I think Kellen Mond at this point, was auditioning for a job somewhere else or to be on our practice squad. I think that's really where it's at. I think DTR has grabbed that third job for the Cleveland Browns. Dobbs your number 2, Deshaun your starter. But it was good to see Kellen Mond last week as well go 7 of 12, 79 yards and a touchdown, 105 rating. So he looked much better. He's thrown a touchdown in both games. I think he did a better job of using his legs in game 2 and kind of getting the ball, pushing it down the field a little bit more. So you want to see him continue to do that because great kid, great worker, and you want to see him continue to to have some success there at quarterback.
See, we'll do the running backs, but a quick one before we get into that. Where are we with Jerome Ford?
Don't know. He's still out with that hamstring injury, and I think Chris made a great point. Is that we kind of I want to say take it for granted. It's not similar to when we're just like, oh yeah, Zach Wilson's the number 2 pick. Why is he the number 2 pick? It's he is the number 2 back. They like everything they've seen, but this is not somebody who's done it in the NFL.
No.
He barely played on offense. He got 8 carries last year at the end of the season. They went for 12 yards. He was a kick returner, really. So productive at Cincinnati, but that's why I think you're watching all the people that if the Eagles don't carry 4 running backs, they're cutting somebody who has produced in the National Football League. If Michael Carter gets cut by the Jets, he is produced in the National Football League. So I think that's what we're missing is a backup currently that has produced in the NFL. There is not one of those on our roster outside of Nick Chubb. So, you talk about a proven guy. Like for a while we said, we have one proven guy in the defensive tackle room. Well, you go out and you get Shelby Harris. Well, now you have 2 proven in the National Football League guys. So at the running back position, you don't have that. And now Jordan Wilkins is actually, to be honest with you, the most proven. So I'm kind of curious to watch him. Jordan Wilkins, for his career, 54 games, he's run it 208 times for 1,009 yards. That's 4.9 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns. He can catch it. He has 41 career catches. He is the most proven in the NFL on our entire roster, former 5th-round pick of the Colts in 2018. So I'm curious to see him. He's the one guy who I think could come out and with a strong performance kind of insert his name back into the mix because he is a veteran. He's been in the league. He's going into his 6th season. He played at Ole Miss. This was a guy of consequence. And when you average 5 yards a carry, over 200 carries in the NFL, you can play a little bit. Like, there's no doubt. So he's the guy that I'm probably the most interested to see in that room. I think Hassan Hall, the undrafted free agent, he's looking for practice squad. You lose a fumble. That's very tough. Demetric has played well. He's led the team in rushing in the preseason. He's averaging 5 yards a carry. I think Demetric and Wilkins, if it's on this roster, those are the 2. I'm curious to see what kind of work Wilkins gets. He just got signed this week, so how much does he know? How much do they trust him?
As we go to the receiver position, dicey times at the bottom of that grouping, trying to figure out what the numbers could be there. And of course, much like at running back with Ford, we have the Goodwin stuff where we're still waiting on that.
Yep. Yeah. Look, this one feels dicey, and our top 4 are set. I think if Marquise Goodwin plays, our top 5 are set. So then it becomes what's happening after that. And David Bell came alive last week. 3 catches, 33 yards. He had that touchdown. That was his best game so far. We haven't seen Jalen Darden at all, and I think that's unfortunate. One of the great sayings, and I know that you know this from a lot of guys who have played in the league, and they all use it. You can't make the club from the tub.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately kind of where we're at with Jalen Darden. He has all the speed you would have wanted to see. Anthony Schwartz at this point, he actually had some nice days against the Eagles, but it just has not happened with the lights on bright. And then the question is, what do we know about Jakeem Grant? Jakeem Grant's got 100 catches, 1,140 yards, 9 touchdowns as a receiver in his career. Does he still have that juice coming off of the Achilles, to be the returner and be worthy of a roster spot, or also to be maybe that sixth receiver for you? So, and then there's Austin Watkins, who's just done everything you could want. 8 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown on the preseason, leading receiver in both games. Is he somebody that would you make 6'3", good size? Does he make your roster? I don't know about that, but he might be a guy now that's played his way onto somebody else's roster or certainly onto our practice squad. So the depth at receiver is if Marquise Goodwin's there, you're not worried at all about the receiver room at all because you've got all the little pieces, all the little flavors. If Marquise Goodwin is not there, you have a hole in that vertical receiver game, which we've talked about is so important to this football team for years, just to be able to stretch the field and make space.
Yeah, and we talked like when we first were having conversation about Goodwin at the Greenbrier. I mean, I would have thought we would have known by now. I kind of got the sense that there would be a little bit sooner of an answer on that.
Yep. Yeah.
So we'll see.
The answer will come prior to the season. So we will know if he's going to be available. It's going to be one of those things that you just won't know until you know. You know what I mean?
So I understand, is it one of those things where it's like he will be in for the season or he will be out for the season?
He will either be he'll be in for the season or he will be out for at least the majority of the season.
Okay. All right. That's the way I was kind of reading it minimally.
Because when you're dealing with the blood clots, they need to be gone before you can return to action. And I think the course of treatment is a multi-month treatment if they are not gone. So hoping for good news there. He's such a great guy. I got a chance to sit down. I had lunch with him yesterday, was that? Or 2 days ago. He's great. You want him on the team for a lot of reasons from his talent, but he's a guy that, and I think it's been great that he's come around. He's around at every practice, travels on all these trips, which is got to be hard for him. And he's so willing to help everybody in that room. He's great. I can't say enough good things about Marquise Goodwin.
Offensive line we've talked a lot about in terms of the guys there. Let's go to the defensive side. Positionally, the interior, right? I mean, that's probably where the biggest questions are. It feels like on the edge we're pretty well locked in.
Yeah, and then, watch Tyrone Wheatley Jr. He didn't give up a pressure in the preseason game. He's got a lot of buzz. He was actually our top-graded offensive lineman at Pro Football Focus last week. Keep an eye on him as somebody who could – I don't know if he can make this roster, but is he a practice squad guy, or is he somebody that plays so well that you might even have to trade him? You know what I mean? That he might be somebody that garners some trade conversation. On the inside, I think what I'm watching for tonight is, does Luke Whippler get more reps at guard? Are they going to try to figure out a way to keep both Nick Harris and Luke Whippler on the interior? Because what you're set on the outside with Hudson and DeJuan Jones. Do you keep Whippler? Do you keep 10? Do you keep Whippler, Harris, and then hopefully Drew Forbes is back? If not, maybe Michael Dunn. Do you keep 10 on the offensive line going into the season? Because the thought would be, we probably can't get, Harris or Whippler necessarily to the practice squad. So
I don't know how feasible. I don't even know how possible or feasible it would be. But like the Jets are having all sorts of problem with their offensive line. It feels like we could use a running back to come in. I mean,
that would be.
Isn't that a dance partner? Where
of course,
because we have such an embarrassment of riches on the offensive line. It's ridiculous.
Our third string is the best third string I think by a wide margin.
I think the twos are there too. I think that to me feels like. Maybe a call should be made, and we've danced with them before in the trade stuff, so maybe there's a spot there. We got to hit Jeff Kerr here coming up briefly, but defensively, give me a couple of things where your eyes will be paying attention tonight.
Yeah, I still think that there's a lot to prove for Jordan Elliott, Maurice Hurst, Tommy Togiai in that battle to be the last defensive tackle. You want to see Isaiah McGuire flash a little bit because with Alex Wright out, he's going to be counted on to be your fourth defensive end. The linebacking position, I feel like with the injury to Jacob Phillips, that feels like you're a little more set there with who your top six are. And then on the back end, Hickman, DeAnthony Bell, how do they continue to play? And I hope we see Cam Mitchell. I know that he left practice against Philly on Tuesday. I hope he's able to go because he's been really impressive for the Cleveland Browns, and he's a young rookie that's shown a lot. So he's somebody that I also want to really give a good look to there. But most of my eyes, like we said, for things that truly matter in this game, it's going to be on Cade York, and then everything else. There's a lot of fun guys to watch. A lot of guys competing, I think, like I said, interior of the defensive line. I love watching our two undrafted free agent linebackers play, Diabate and Charlie Thomas. I love watching both of those guys play. So you can give me all of their action you want. But that's kind of, I think, where we're at right now. That's what it's looking for the Browns, and really kind of what's at stake and where there are opportunities to maybe make moves.
All right, all of it will be on display tonight against the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles. Jeff Kerr covers the Eagles. He's a great friend of the program. He joins us coming up next. This is the Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, time to go behind enemy lines with our good buddy, CBS Sports and Eagles reporter for 97.3 ESPN in Philly. He is Jeff Kerr. He joins us on the Twisted Tea Hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Jeff, thanks so much for taking the time. Let's just dig right in. I'm actually going to have you do a little role reversal, if you don't mind. You were at these practices, and sometimes I'm curious how an opposing guy who covers an opposing team views our team, and obviously you got a front row seat with these joint practices. What did you make of what the Browns were in these practices?
The first thing I've noticed with Cleveland is I was already a big fan of their defensive line before I saw them live. After watching Myles Garrett on Monday, I'm like, yeah, this is the best defensive line he's ever played with. Obviously you got guys like Darius Smith on that. I just couldn't believe what they were doing to the Eagles' offensive line. Now, I know Landon Dickerson left with an injury. Jason Kelce got a little banged up, but those guys were having their way on Monday. I will say, I think this Cleveland Browns team is going to be better than what people think, and I think they'd be getting more hype if they weren't in the AFC, specifically the AFC North. But you can tell this is a talented football team. I don't know. I can't project a win total for them, but this is definitely a team that I feel, if someone said the Cleveland Browns could win the AFC North, I would believe it.
Yeah, so you talked about the defense, and I think that was what a lot of people kind of took away from those first couple of days. And, you didn't get to see Elijah Moore, which I wish you did because he's been such a big part of what we've done. But just kind of overall, you think about a year ago in these joint practices, it felt like the Browns were kind of outclassed physically, just generally, not defensive line only. But did you feel like the Browns looked like a team that belonged on the field with the Eagles from a physical standpoint and a talent standpoint?
I believe so. So last year, everything I've got out of Cleveland was, okay, the Eagles are really good and the Browns aren't. And we're like, okay, well, maybe Cleveland will be better in the regular season. This year, I think Cleveland can match up with one of the big boys of the NFC, if not the big boy of the NFC. And from what I thought, I was watching Deshaun Watson a little bit. I was mostly focused on Cleveland's defense, but I thought Deshaun Watson looked a lot more crisp than he did last year. He just looked like he had a full all season under his belt. None of the distractions. I was amazed. Like, I was ready for the responses when I took a picture of him signing autographs for Eagles fans, and I thought I'd get the normal responses, and I didn't get them. And I was like, okay, so maybe, his head's cleared. He can move on. He can focus on football, focus on winning games for Cleveland. But overall, I like the way Cleveland's team was. I just think they're more of a well-rounded team, and I think, especially with the defense, I think Jim Schwartz is going to make a huge impact on them, just like he did in Philadelphia 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's stay there, Jeff, with Jim and his defense and the pieces that he has to work with. You obviously know Jim well from his time in Philly and the type of efforts he did there. What characteristics can Browns fans expect to see out of this defense that maybe we didn't see the past couple years?
So get ready for the sticks defense. I'm going to warn you guys now. You guys might get a little upset at the 3rd and 15s when someone gets like 13, 14 yards, and you're like, oh, why is he doing that? Why aren't they blitzing? I'm like, that's just not what Jim does. Jim likes to rush 4. So that's why they got to Darius Smith, right? So you have someone who can counter Myles Garrett. Like, Jadeveon Clowney just wasn't that guy last year, and you paid him a lot of money for that. Now you're paying a guy who I ranked as one of the top edge rushers in football, and Myles Garrett was obviously one of them. But I just love that front, and then now you add Shelby Harris to the mix. I thought that was a good signing for Cleveland. I like the linebacking core a lot. By the way, I have to add this in. How good was Denzel Ward in Monday's practice? Wasn't he?
Oh yeah.
As good as. I'll say this, Devontae. Oh, go ahead, guys.
Well, we just say he's like the best mirror. I think he's the best mirror in football.
Yeah, I agree. And Devonta Smith was, to me, he's one of the best route runners in the sport right now. Him and Amon-Ra St. Brown are probably 2 of the top 10 route runners. And Denzel Ward was holding his, not only holding his own, they were going back and forth. And I'm like, okay, this is what if I'm a fan, that's what I'm paying to see. And it's a shame fans won't get to see that tonight in the preseason game, but anybody who was at that joint practice, that was about as even as a draw as you could get.
Yeah, and it was a who's who too coming out to watch it. Former GMs from all around the league, a lot of analysts. There were a ton of people to come watch these practices. And what struck me is, with Deshaun and Chubb and Batonio and Amari and Wyatt Teller's been in two Pro Bowls. It felt like on both fields when things were going on simultaneously, you had a handful of Pro Bowlers on both sides of the ball on both fields at the same time. There was just a ton of star power, and I think for the Browns, we talked about the size. Yeah, that's a change, but just the amount of star power that was on both sides of the ball felt like very different from last year for me, certainly. And you're going against a team, and the Eagles have sent I think 8 guys to the Pro Bowl a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't think Jalen Hurts was that great on Monday. I thought he was phenomenal on Tuesday, and I think it was maybe all that film study he did on Cleveland's defense and Schwartz, because that's the first time he saw that, and you could tell the difference between Monday and Tuesday with the Eagles' offense. It's okay. They got in, they watched the film, and they're like, okay, well, let's try this. But I still thought Cleveland's defense held their own both days. It's definitely. The Cleveland Browns are going to be a defensive football team, but they have a franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson. They have one of the best running backs in the game in Nick Chubb. And I still said that I would have given Cleveland the edge over Philadelphia Monday if Amari Cooper would have caught those passes he dropped toward the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's uncharacteristic for him, and he normally comes back. I just want to say, you mentioned their offense looked a little bit better on the second day. There was also no Myles Garrett in those team periods, and Myles Garrett was a problem for them on Monday, and the combo of Myles and Za'Darius and Obo and Dalvin was a real problem. So Myles, he's a difference maker, isn't he? And you see, there are a lot of them, it felt like, on those two defensive lines in terms of just like top-line talent. There might not be two more talented groups, and then maybe, Washington is probably in the discussion of the Niners, but that's pretty good stuff there.
Well, I think that's what I was so amazed about Myles. So I have to rank the edge rushers every year in the pass rushers. I'm like, oh, okay, where do I put Myles Garrett here? Because I've always wanted to put him number one. I'm like, do I really want to put him number one over the actual defensive player of the year? And I chickened out. I put Myles at 2. I really chickened out. I tied him and Watt. And, as someone who's seen Myles up close now, I'm like, if someone told me Myles Garrett was the best pass rusher in football, I'm not going to disagree with them. I mean, Jordan Mailata is one of the best left tackles in the game right now, and Myles absolutely wrecked him. I mean, he was just all over the place, and I think a lot of that has to do with Smith on the other side. You got to worry about him, and I was hoping that they'd line up Myles against Lane Johnson just for fun, but I knew it wasn't going to happen, but that would have been something to just watch basically 700 pounds of force just collide.
Well, that's what was cool post-game, too, Jeff, is you saw those two hooking up. You saw Myles with Lane post-game. Those videos going around, those two kind of like just working on their craft. And I think, that's something that was so valuable. We spent so much time talking about the trenches, and it's probably not a coincidence. You think about AB, with Howie and the time he spent there, like these two teams in the trenches, you want to do offense and defensive lines combined, these two might be the two best in the sport.
Oh, absolutely. And I always forget Andrew Berry went to Cleveland, honestly, because his understudy's in Philly. So, but Berry did a lot for the Eagles when he was here, when he was working with Roseman, and you knew it was a matter of time before he was going to leave. And I remember seeing him right away. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm like, and it's been a couple of years now that he's been with Cleveland, but it just feels like he's building a foundation there. It's like, okay, we got the quarterback, we got him locked up. Let's work on the trenches, and everything else will take care of itself. And I mean, you see the talent on that roster. I mean, there's a lot of players on Cleveland. You're like, wait, he's on the Browns, or wait, like this guy's a Cleveland Brown, and you're like, yeah, he's pretty good. But I would say this: of Cleveland's offensive line, Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller are by far the two best guards, at least in my opinion, in the league. Guard combination, and I still can't get over what Jalen Carter was able to do to Bitonio on both days. And I'm like, okay, so how good is Jalen? Yeah, I go, how good is Jalen Carter going to be? Like, this is Joel Bitonio here. Like, he was visibly upset during that practice. It's probably like, wait, this kid's, like, destroying me? Like, there are Pro Bowlers that can't do that.
Yeah, Joel Bitonio doesn't give up a whole lot. I think 1 sack, in the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, Jalen Carter, he was impressive. Speaking of young guys that are big and impressive, what did you make of DeJuan Jones? And he got to get in there on Tuesday and held his own against Brandon Graham.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that DeJuan Jones was able to do that, honestly. And is he in the battle for, like, any of the starting spots, or is it kind of like, or is it because Conklin was out, he kind of is playing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, but that's good depth for Cleveland, right? I mean, I kind of wish the Eagles had the Eagles right now. They don't know who their number 3 tackle is going to be because obviously Andre Dillard's now out in Tennessee. So you're looking at it might be Tyler Steen. I mean, he's probably been the best of the bunch. They've tried out a couple guys there. Fred Johnson, as you guys well know, he's one of those guys. So it's I mean, I was impressed with Jones. I really was. I thought he held his own against BG. I didn't get to see him against Nolan Smith, though. Did Nolan Smith go against him?
I don't remember that. I remember that when they were doing the ones, it was Brandon Graham that was lined up opposite him.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. Miles Garrett said it best. I thought it was just a healthy competition between both teams. Like, both squads got better this week. Like, a lot of teams like to do joint practices against quote-unquote inferior opponents. I don't think the Eagles and Browns are like that. I think the Browns want to go against the best. I think the Eagles want to go against a team that they know can get them better. I actually thought this Eagles team was going to be good. I'll say this. After that Browns joint training camp practice, I'm like, okay, this team is going to be good this year. It's just how good they're going to be. I'm starting to think that about the Browns, too. Like, if they weren't in the AFC North, if they were in, like, say, the AFC South, I'd say they run away with it. But if they can just beat Baltimore, if they can beat Pittsburgh, they can beat Cincinnati, go 4-2 against the division, you're probably looking at a 10-win football team here.
Yeah, we certainly hope so. I want to ask you, going into this game, like, there's going to be it's going to be a lot of the deep depth chart guys that are in there. But I was looking at we have some questions right now at running back just because behind Nick, you've got an injury to Jerome Ford. We just don't know what that's going to be. In terms of for our fans' perspective, and I'm just looking at the depth of like the Eagles running back room, who are some guys that maybe could be maybe not making this final roster that we could have some interest in?
Trey Sermon is going to be a guy for you guys to watch because I made a bold prediction the Eagles are going to keep all 5 of them. And that's not going to happen. That was 3 weeks ago before camp. That definitely is not going to happen. So Kenny Gainwell, as you guys saw, was the one for the Eagles, and it's DeAndre Swift. Those two are definitely playing. Rashad Penny, I think he makes the team. I think the Eagles like what Rashad Penny brings. You're not paying him much, but they cut him. You're Cleveland. You got to scoop that up, right? You got to get a guy that is behind, Nick Chubb. Obviously, you had Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson for how many years? And, so Penny's a guy to watch. Boston Scott, I think the Eagles keep him. They really like him. He's been in the system now. I think this is his 6th year in the system. So 7th year, actually. Came here in 2017. So, Trey Sermon tonight, I would definitely be watching him. I definitely watch to see if Rashad Penny plays tonight. I know I don't believe a lot of stuff Nick Sirianni says anymore. And he didn't play Kenny Gainwell the first game and Boston Scott. And he's like, well, we're rotating the backs. I'm like, okay, Nick, Kenny Gainwell's still your first running back, and you'll show it on Monday. And he did. So I'm curious to see which running backs play tonight. I don't think it's going to be Swift. I do think we might see Penny, but I wouldn't be shocked if we didn't see him here. But I think for the Browns' sake, you got to see Penny and Trey Sermon tonight. Anybody who didn't play the first 2 days in those joint practices, I think we're going to see.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited. I have a question just kind of on the depth as well. They have a lot of corners there, and you think about the undrafted free agents. You get Garner, who was at LSU in his last year. You get Pick Six Ricks, who started with LSU, was an All-American as a freshman, finishes at Alabama, goes undrafted, and I'm sure there's got to be much more of a story there. But how are these kind of young corners, and is this a team that's going to be – and you got Greedy from us, who certainly can play, former second-round pick. How are these corners looking?
So Greedy might get – I'll tell you what, Greedy's probably getting cut because of Garner and because of Ricks. Like they're just outplayed. Like, Greedy's not even a factor right now. So it's Josh Jobs, the third guy on the boundary. You got Zach McPherson and Vontae Maddox in the slot. Obviously, you got Slay and Bradbury, so that's 5. So it's who's going to be the 6 right now. And it's not going to be Greedy. I'll say it's probably Eli Ricks. I don't want to say he's the favorite right now. I think Gardner is because he can play some safety. Obviously, you guys knew that from his LSU days.
What about
so
Ringo?
I would. Well, Haley Ringo. So again, I'm forgetting. So he's on the team. So there's going to be somebody available. It's basically one of those guys have to beat out Zach McPherson. I think that's how it's going to play out. And the Eagles like how McPherson can play slot. He can play outside. You do need a backup slot corner, but I mean, Zach can do it all. Like he's a guy that
stud too.
Yeah, exactly. He's a special teamer, and I think that's what's going to be the difference. So if you guys need cornerbacks, I'd definitely be watching Ricks and Gardner tonight. Like, I know Eagles fans want to keep Ricks on the team, but it's like, man, Josh Joe's been playing well. You're not going to cut the fourth-round pick in Haley Ringo. I mean, who do you go with? I knew I was forgetting somebody there when you guys asked me, by the way. I'm like, who am I forgetting amongst this group? And I'm glad you guys mentioned it.
It's very helpful when I have my boards right in front of me, so it makes it very easy.
Jeff, thank you so much for your time, bud. Always appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, sounds good. Nate, you got to be there tonight?
I will be there, yes,
in
sir.
The booth.
All right, I'll see you tonight.
All right, sounds good, Jeff.
That's Jeff Kerr, Eagles reporter at 97.3 ESPN in Philly, and then at CBS Sports. So much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. IT, give me one thought for tonight, my friend. Give me one thought.
Let's go, Cade. Enjoy the DTR show, and let's see who can step up kind of in that running back room. I think that's really what you want to see on offense is DTR keep doing his thing. And then, what does Jordan Wilkins show? Watch those Philly backs, as they mentioned as well. But the one thing to me is Cade York. The one thing that could come out of this game that I feel like could impact this season is Cade York. So that's where my eyes will be. Yeah,
when you talk about Wilkins, he's like, when you think about somebody who potentially could actually be the two, maybe him, because Felton is a very different player. But like if Ford is out for an extended period, then that needs to be sorted out. So that's one to pay attention to.
Agreed. Yeah, that's kind of where my focus will be. And then can the Whippler, DeJuan Jones, Nick Harris, the three of them, do they go out and ball again? Tyrone Wheatley, to your point, he could become a trade piece to help address one of these situations.
Yeah, very good. Look forward to you and Jim on the call, my friend, right here on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Next level is coming up next. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.